So our story today is going to be about Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, some Israelites that were his captives. The story goes like this. Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold whose height was 60 cubits and whose breadth was 6 cubits. He set it up in Babylon. Then they were gathered together to the dedication, and they rose up in front of that image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And one, proclaiming, called with force, saying, "At the time that you hear the voice of the horn, the pipe, the lute, and all kinds of singing psalms, you shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall in the same hour be cast into the midst of a burning, fiery furnace." Because of this, when all the people heard the voice of the instruments, they fell down and worshipped the golden image. Then men of the Chaldeans came near and accused those who were Jews. They answered and said to Nebuchadnezzar, "O king, live for ages. There are men of the Jews, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not regarded your decree." Then Nebuchadnezzar, trembling and in fury, said to bring them, and they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar answered and said to them, "Is it with intent that you are not worshiping the image of gold which I have raised up? Now, when you hear the voice of the instruments, you will fall down and worship the image which I have made. But if you do not worship, you will be cast in the same hour into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is that God who will deliver you from my hands?" But Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we will not rush to answer you concerning this. If it be so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, be it known to you that we will not serve your gods, nor worship the golden image which you have set up." Then Nebuchadnezzar was filled with fury, and his face was changed against them. And he answered and said to heat the furnace 7 times above what it was. And he said to bind them and to cast them into it. Then these men were bound and were cast into the midst of the furnace. And the flame of fire killed the men who took them up. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego fell down bound into the midst of the fiery furnace. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king was astounded and rose up, vexed. He said, "Did we not cast 3 men into the midst of the fire bound?" And they answered and said, "It is certain, O king." He answered, "Behold, I see 4 men, loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and there's no hurt on them, and the appearance of the 4th is like a son of the gods." Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the gate of the burning fiery furnace and said, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, you servants of the Most High God, come out." Then they came out from the midst of the fire. And everyone saw these men, on whose bodies the fire did not have dominion, nor was a hair of their head singed, nor were their clothes harmed, nor had the smell of the fire even passed on them. Then Nebuchadnezzar answered and said, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servants. Amen." So this story, like every story in the Lord's Word, is a story about the inside of us. And Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon are selfishness. Sometimes we call it the love of self. But Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are the part of us that wants to do good. And the story is all about what happens when those 2 things fight in us. In the story, Nebuchadnezzar builds this statue for them to worship. And what that is in us is when that selfish part of us wants to do something selfish and says to the other part of us, "You need to obey me." And it uses two methods to get the good part of us to listen. In the story, it's music at the beginning and festivities, encouragement, and then the threat of the furnace. For us, inside, we can feel the encouragement if we think it would be fun or funny to make fun of someone. Or when we're angry and we think, oh, it would feel really good to yell or say something rude sometimes, or to hit someone, because that would feel good because I'm angry. And then the threat of the furnace is when there's pressure to do something wrong. Maybe we don't want to do the right thing and help someone who's being made fun of or teased because we don't want to be made fun of either. We feel the pressure to be on the side of the people hurting them because we don't want to be hurt. Or maybe someone we know is encouraging us to lie or steal or do something we know is wrong. And because we don't want to make them mad or we want to be friends with them, we feel pressure to do what they say, even though we know it's wrong. So that fight is what this story is all about. And if we give in, it's really easy. Sometimes it feels good to just say, you know what, I want to do that bad thing. I don't care if I know it's wrong. I want to do that. And if you remember in the story, that's what almost everybody did. When the music played and they heard the threat, they worshiped. But it's a lot harder if we want to fight. When Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego fought, the king called them to him. And again, he talked about the music and threatened them with the furnace. And then when they refused, he made the furnace 7 times hotter. Because the hells really want us to do bad things. And the more that we say, no, I want to do something good, the more they want to make us stop. But in the story, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are completely okay in the end. And they're completely okay because the Lord is with them. The fourth person in the fire is the Lord. When we're in a situation where we have that struggle in us, that fight in us, and we know there's something bad, but we don't want to do it, but we do, if we can ask the Lord for help when that's happening, if we can say, Lord, I know this is wrong, I don't want to do this, please help me, He can get us out of it completely okay. All right, you guys can go back to your seats. The trouble with Nebuchadnezzar, though, is that he isn't just tempting us to be selfish, to do evil, to sin. Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon are a symbol of corruption, of profanation. They're about when the hells want to turn something good into something evil. And they do this in 2 ways. The first is the music, the enticement, the encouragement to do something wrong. And the second is the furnace, the pressure. And if we look around in our lives and in the world, it's pretty easy to see these 2 things trying to get us to do bad things. If we think about the music, one example we can think about is food. Food is good. Food is necessary for life. In fact, in the Word, one of the biggest ways that they show us that the Lord is good is that He gives food to people. But we know that we can abuse food. We know that we can consume it in a way that isn't actually healthy, is actually harmful. But that's a natural example. Let's look at something more spiritual, moral. Something like justice, doing the right thing. If you're in traffic, sometimes you might say, I'm not going to let that person merge in front of me. There's not enough space, the speed is wrong, the spacing's wrong. That's not the right thing to do. It would be dangerous. But it's really easy to slip into, that person's driving wrong, I'm driving right, they're making me angry, I'm not going to let them in. Doing the right thing, upholding what's right, can easily slip into anger. Or something like sympathy and empathy, which are wonderful things, so important to how we love our neighbor. But sometimes we can use those to let someone continue a harmful habit, where we think, I love that person, I want them to do what they want. And so we don't try to help them when they're doing something that hurts themselves, or worse, hurts other people. Something so good can be turned into something that ends up harmful. Physical attraction, we know, is the first step of conjugal love. But we also know that if we only follow that desire, it can lead to many harmful things. Piety. You might have a good habit of coming to church regularly, praying, reading the Word, great things. But that can become a feeling of self-righteousness, self-importance. And you might slip into the thought sometime when you see someone who's not living up to those standards you have in your head, you might slip into the thought that they are somehow worse than you. That's the music, enticing you to draw you from the good to the bad. And then there's the furnace, the threat, the pressure. Something like beauty and fashion. There's nothing wrong with it. In fact, it's something good. It's nice to try to look nice for people. But social pressure can push that from a focus on trying to appear good for the people around you, or to appear presentable in order to do your job better, into something worse, into competition, where the focus is looking better than other people, or into vanity. Alcohol is important. It's part of the Holy Supper. The Word talks about its importance. But many of us have seen what pressure does to that, where casual consumption becomes something much worse, something unhealthy, maybe forming harmful habits. Or judgment, upholding boundaries, enforcing important rules can be a good thing, where you have gentle correction to help people, but you can feel pressure from the people around you to instead have that correction be a tool to harm, to belittle, mocking, spreading rumors. The pressure and the enticement, both from either side, want to draw that good in you into something evil. And the more good you have, the more they attack it. The Heavenly Doctrine tells us in Arcana Celestia, number 1690, all temptation is an assault upon the love in which a person is, and the temptation is to the same degree as the love. The more good there is, the harder the hells want to destroy it. And that all sounds very dire. But if we remember in the story, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego walk out of that fire completely unscathed. And we know that's because of the Lord's presence, but there's something more in addition. And we can see that if we look at their names. Now, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego probably don't mean much to us in the room, but if we look at their original Hebrew names and translate them into English, they mean God has favored, God has helped, and who is like God. And these are actually two important ideas that get us through that furnace. God has helped, God has favored, is the idea of humility. This isn't mine, God gave me this. And who is like God is the idea of remembering the Lord and that He is all goodness. And when you remember that the Lord is all goodness, it's pretty easy to judge your actions and see whether they're supporting that. So those two ideas are what we want to take with us into the furnace. If you can, in a moment of temptation, in a moment when you're feeling some sort of selfish pride, self-righteousness, feeling better than someone else, if you can say, God has favored me. You can completely destroy that. It's amazing how the feeling of humility that can replace it, if you can say in that moment, oh, that's not my good. That's not me. I'm not better. All of that's from the Lord. Or when you're in a tough moment and you're not sure whether you're veering off the path, you can remember the Lord is pure goodness, and it's often, not always, often pretty easy to say, okay, maybe I'm veering off the path a little. This isn't an action that someone who is pure good would want me to do. Those are two tools that actually get us through that furnace. If we can take the Lord and those ideas with us into that moment of temptation, into the depths of the furnace, we can walk out without a hair on our head being singed. Amen. I'd invite you now to bow your heads